You know that feeling when you're just hungry? Well, Queen Victoria, the grandmother of Europe, was starving. We're talking keeping her husband up all night until he's physically drained kind of hungry. And after he passed, she didn't slow down. She moved on to a buff Indian servant and basically entered her forbidden romance era. Plus, with all those kids, she low-key left a curse on Europe that literally triggered World War I. Most people see the Victorian era as the peak of the British Empire, but behind the scenes, it was giving major toxic vibes. Child labor, zero hygiene, and a massive drug problem. So, was Queen Victoria's reign a blessing or a total disaster for her people? And what kind of drama did she get into that even a Netflix show wouldn't dare to write? Let's dive in. When you hear Queen Victoria, you probably imagine a girl born with a literal silver spoon in her mouth, living that main character life in a palace. And yeah, she was rich, but her childhood? Absolute nightmare fuel. Born May 24th, 1819 at Kensington Palace, Alexandrina Victoria was the only child of Prince Edward. Her royal status was complicated. Her dad was only the fourth son of the king, so her chances of actually sitting on the throne were slim to none. It was a total long shot. To make matters worse, her dad, her only real claim to the throne, died when she was just 1 year old. This left Victoria and her mom, aka the Duchess of Kent, in a super awkward spot at court. But her mom wasn't about to let that bag slip. She teamed up with her shady as hell comptroller, Sir John Conroy, to secure their power. They built a literal wall of surveillance around little Victoria. They called it protection, but everyone knew the Duchess was just using Victoria's royal blood to clout chase and stay relevant after her husband died. They call this the Kensington system, but I call it the no privacy ever method. The core idea, keep Victoria on a leash. Constant surveillance 24/7. She couldn't eat alone, walk alone, or even take a bath or write in her diary without somebody breathing down her neck. Want to hang out with friends? Denied. Every single person she met had to be pre-approved by Conroy. It's like having a creepy uncle vet all your Instagram followers. For young Victoria, this was totally suffocating and made her trust no one. And Conroy, total creep. He was out here using major toxic gaslighting manipulation tactics. Whenever she felt sick, he'd be like, "Oh, you're so weak and helpless, only your mom and I can truly care about you. No one else knows what's best for you, not even yourself." Little Victoria actually believed this, for a while actually, feeling like she was nothing without them. But as she grew up, she realized the only useless ones were the two adults clinging to her like leeches. But Conroy's ambition was wild. He wanted to be the power behind the throne. As Victoria moved up the line of succession, he was practically foaming at the mouth. He even tried to trick her into signing a document making him regent while the king was dying. Luckily, Victoria had some loyal maids who blocked his dusty hands and kept her power intact. In 1837, King William IV passed away, and 18-year-old Victoria became queen. Even though the court was crawling with Conroy's goons, the second she got that crown, she stopped being the quiet girl and went full boss mode. She kicked them both out of the palace immediately. It was a total mic drop moment. All the adults who looked down on her were shook. The Victorian era had officially begun. Join us on Amazing Talker. It's our one-on-one tutoring platform. You can find a tutor to learn about English or history or any other subject. Our tutors are from all around the world and speak your native language. More than 1 million students have joined us already, making us one of the largest learning platforms online. So if you're interested in learning more, learning languages, or just something a little less scary, well, just click on the link below and register to get $10 off. So, what's the first thing you do when you become queen? Fix the country? Nah, that's for NPCs. Our girl's Victoria, first order of business was shooting her shot with her first cousin, Prince Albert. The most romantic love story of her life started in 1836. Back then, she wasn't queen yet, and Albert wasn't exactly the snack he later become. They were introduced for a political marriage, and Victoria's first impression was basically meh. She wrote in her diary that he was amiable and intelligent, standard friend zone talk. But 3 years later, after she took the throne, their second meeting was a total game changer. Talk about a glow up. Albert had grown up and Victoria was down bad. Her diary entry that night was basically a fanfic. She wrote, "He is extremely handsome, his hair is about the same color as mine, and his eyes are large and blue, and he has a beautiful nose and very sweet mouth with fine teeth. In modern terms, he's a literal 10 out of 10. I'm obsessed. I'm spiraling." And as queen, she wasn't waiting around. She manufactured accidental run-ins, invited him for walks, music, and art, basically letting the whole world know, this one's mine. Since she was the monarch, royal rules meant she had to propose. And Victoria, zero hesitation. On October 15th, 1839, just 5 days into his visit, she popped the question. Albert said yes immediately. No playing hard to get here. Victoria, the diary queen, wrote, "We embraced each other over and over again. My heart was so full." 4 months later, they had a massive royal wedding. Victoria went all out. While other royal brides were wearing every color of the rainbow, Victoria went anti-trend and chose a stunning, pure white gown. She basically invented the white wedding aesthetic that we're still obsessed with today. On her wedding night, she was on cloud 9. She wrote, "I never spent such an evening. My dearest, dear Albert. His excessive love and affection gave me feelings of heavenly love and happiness I never could have hoped to have felt before. Basically, I'm obsessed. I'm finished. He's the one." But not everyone was a fan. Albert was royal, but he was broke royal. Haters were calling him a gold digger and a trophy husband. The hate only stopped when someone tried to assassinate the queen, and Albert literally jumped in front of her to block the bullet. That's when the public finally realized, okay, he's the real one. He's got her back. So, was that Prince Charming romance sweet enough to give you a cavity? Well, hold on to your seat, because this story hasn't even hit climax yet. On their wedding night, Victoria didn't sleep a single wink. She was so hyped, she could barely stand it. Curious about what went down? Let's pull out the Queen's Diary, which is basically the 19th century version of a burn book, but for tea. She wrote in vivid detail about how they were, well, completely unfiltered with each other and how they made each other happy. It's pretty spicy stuff, but since we're trying to avoid getting age restricted here, I'll let you use your imagination. We're all adults, right? Alright, no need to make a scene. The queen was down bad for her husband. For the first few days of marriage, they barely left the bed. At night, it was constant no sleep vibe. She adored him with a level of passion she couldn't even put into words. We did not sleep much. Albert was so dear and affectionate. How I adore and love him, I cannot say. And the thirst in her diary when he'd come back from a trip, it was next level. She wrote, "My dear Albert, he looked so handsome in his white cashmere breeches with nothing on underneath." She specifically noted he had nothing under those pants. You know exactly what she was looking at, don't you? Luckily, Victoria's fire wasn't met with a cold shoulder. Albert was totally here for the high-level play. He caught every ball she threw. He'd buy her sexy black silk stockings or set the mood with intense rose perfumes. They did everything they could do, and probably some things they shouldn't. It got to the point where Albert was physically drained. He'd be like, "Babe, I'm exhausted. Can we just cuddle tonight?" And Victoria would actually get a little salty about this. But their love wasn't just kept behind closed doors. In public, they'd go for carriage rides and decorate Christmas trees together. He was never that guy who'd ghost her and text back 3 hours later like, "Sorry babe, I fell asleep." The coolest thing about Albert? He decided to be a tradition-breaking prince consort in that super conservative era. A royal husband in the delivery room? Unheard of. But Albert didn't just stay for the birth. He held Victoria's hand the entire time. Later, during another birth, he felt so bad for her pain that he brought in Dr. John Snow to administer chloroform. He basically became a key pioneer for painless childbirth. Don't sleep on how big of a deal that was. Back then, society thought pregnancy was original sin, so labor pain was seen as punishment for women. Using outside help like anesthesia, that was seen as cheating and disrespectful to God. Sounds wild now, right? But people really believed it. Thankfully, the Queen used her own platform to promote it, and the shocking stigma finally faded. This power couple had 9 kids, but plot twist, Victoria actually hated being a mom. She loathed breastfeeding, said it was disgusting, and she was super annoyed that doctors told her to reduce her activity, aka less bedroom cardio, please, while pregnant. She was not having it. So now you know the secret to their marriage. Sadly, their happily ever after only lasted 17 years before Albert got sick and passed away. For Victoria, it was like her heart died with him. For the next 40 years, she entered her mourning era wearing black every single day and ghosting almost all social events. She even kept Albert's room exactly as it was. Servants had to change his pajamas and make the bed every day, as if he were going to walk in any second, into every royal house in Europe, giving her the title Grandmother of Europe, which I guess means her and Albert's love officially went viral through history. Seriously, was fate just not looking? How do you have 2 endgame people and then just one of them leaves the chat? I'm about to stop believing in love. But wait, like I always say, don't go yet. I haven't finished the story. Victoria outlived Albert by 40 years. When her husband finished his turn, she was just getting started. She was a senior player in the game of love, and she was thriving. Her first rebound? Albert's former Scottish servant, John Brown. After Albert passed, he was moved to the Queen's side to accompany her on walks, chats, and rides, and eventually he was doing other things Albert used to do too. And Brown was not like the gentle Albert. Even though he was a servant, he acted like a straight-up alpha CEO. He'd constantly tell the Queen her outfits were ugly. He just bluntly said, "Stop complaining. I can't just build you a new one." Another time, while helping her into her cloak, she was standing all crooked and he just coldly said, "Woman, you're just playing with fire." Whoa! Who dares talk to the Queen of England like that? Well, surprise, the Queen loved it. Albert was great, but Brown gave her a whole new kind of thrill because no one in her life had ever dared to talk back to her. Brown felt so much more real than those gaslighting, silver-tongued nobles. Plus, Victoria's romances always needed a hero saves the beauty moment. Albert blocked a bullet for her, and now Brown had his turn. Victoria was in a carriage accident and Brown literally pulled her out with his bare hands. Legend has it, he carried her away in a Princess Carry. It was so cinematic, even Netflix script couldn't write it better. Their relationship was so sus that the court couldn't stop gossiping. Some salty officials even called her Mrs. Brown, and the rumors spread that they had secretly eloped. While we don't know for sure if they hitched, we know she was obsessed with him. After Brown died, she kept his belongings and even built a monument for him. What exactly were they commemorating? I'll leave that up to you. Surprise! The story still isn't over. After Brown passed, Victoria met an Indian attendant, Abdul Karim. Originally, he was just sent to the UK to be a cook, but the Queen took one look at him and it was a glow-up moment. She turned him from a servant into her munshi and spiritual advisor, moving him into Windsor Castle. In an era of peak racism, seeing Karim from a colony getting land, honors, and medals, the rest of the royal family was absolutely losing their minds. But the Queen didn't give a single, well, she didn't care. She spent every day with Karim learning Urdu, talking about Indian culture and discussing colonial policy. She was constantly bragging about how smart her Karim was. Naturally, the rumors started flying again, and they were even more toxic. Because of their 44-year age gap, people started calling it a mother-son romance. Totally out of pocket. To protect him, Victoria named Karim as a principal mourner for her funeral, a special honor usually reserved for the monarch's inner circle and family. Basically, she considered him family. One big happy family, right? But Victoria underestimated how much everyone hated him. The second she passed away, every single letter and item related to him was immediately destroyed. and he was literally kicked out of the country. Honestly, that's a major guilty conscious behavior from the family. The more they tried to erase his existence, the more it just proves how much he meant to her. By now, do you realize how stubborn the queen was, right? If she wants it, no one stops her. Same energy if she doesn't want it, even in politics. Take women's rights, for example. Don't think for a second that a woman wouldn't gatekeep other women. Even though she was the queen, she believed women should stay in their wife and mom era and shouldn't have the right to vote. When women wrote to her with petitions, she shut them down without hesitation, calling the movement mad, wicked folly. It made a lot of legendary feminists of the time super salty. They didn't expect the biggest blow to come from the queen herself. The patriarchy really had a grip on her. Did someone say good mom? Let's check her track record. She and Albert had 9 kids, who then went viral across European royalty, leading to 42 grandkids. But there was a problem. The male heirs started dying off one by one. People literally thought it was a curse. Eventually, scientists did a deep dive and found out they all had a genetic disorder called hemophilia. They checked the royal family tree and found no history of it before Victoria. But due to all that royal intermarrying and gene mutation occurred in the queen, she passed hemophilia from the UK to Spain to Germany and Russia. The son of the last Russian Tsar, Nicholas, had it, which helped destabilize the whole royal family and fueled the revolution. She literally changed the course of European history through her DNA. And besides hemophilia, the grandmother of Europe gave the world a long, wet kiss, otherwise known as World War I. How? What does World War I have to do with her? It's all about her grandkids. Once they all sat on their respective thrones, things were fine at first, but in the early 20th century, nationalism started peaking and conflicts between countries got intense. The old rule of don't fight your own relatives turned into beat them until their own grandma wouldn't recognize them. For example, her grandson, George V, was the king of the UK, while another grandson, Wilhelm II, was the German emperor, and Nicholas II of Russia was there too. These 3 cousins grew up together, but when World War I broke out, they were on opposite sides. Wilhelm's expansion policy clashed with George's British interests, and Russia and Germany had major beef. The family alliance Victoria built was literally blown apart by artillery. But let's be fair. Gene mutations and grandkids fighting aren't things the queen could have controlled. So let's look at what she could control. In 1876, Victoria was named Empress of India, despite never actually setting foot on Indian soil. Even though she valued her relationship with India, she brought Karim into her house as a tutor and maybe more, the reality of colonial rule was still exploitation and control. During her reign, India suffered massive famines that killed millions. Colonial officials didn't help. They actually kept exporting grain back to the UK. It turned a famine into a massacre, and a ton of people still find this part of history disgusting. While the UK saw it as unifying India and bringing railways, medicine, and civilization to South Asia, they called it enlightenment. They basically expected India to say, thank you for the blessing. But the good parts were all narrated by the colonizers. No one ever listened to India's voice, and it's not like anyone asked them if they wanted any of it. Even though the queen was doing her own thing in love and annoying her ministers with her views on women, when it came to internal policy, she was a total I'm the main character queen. During her reign, the UK went from an agricultural island to an industrial powerhouse, dominating the globe as the empire on which the sun never sets. How did she pull it off? Vision. As a monarch, she knew exactly where the country needed to go to get stronger. During the Industrial Revolution, she was the #1 cheerleader in the front row. She witnessed railways crossing cities and telegrams connecting the world. In 1851, she personally hosted the Great Exhibition, proving she was a queen who stood science and that Britain would lead the world in the new century. Sounds like a high-energy shonen manga, right? But every shonen manga needs a villain. During this era of rapid growth, the darkest parts were the corners no one wanted to see: pollution, worker exploitation, and child labor. And while the tracks were being laid further and further, the wealth gap between the lower class and the nobility got wider and wider. This wasn't directly her fault, but sadly, she didn't exactly bring everyone along as the country leveled up. Besides turning the country into an industrial giant, she also rewrote the script for family values. Her romance with Albert, the white wedding dress, the high-profile happy family PR, it brought the royals into the public eye. It made the middle class want to copy them, focusing on family ethics and one man, one woman values. It was the 19th century, and today, one man, or one woman is also great. She was also super into social charity. She backed Florence Nightingale's nursing reforms and donated tons of money to disaster victims, war widows, and orphanages. She didn't just do it herself, she pressured other royals to join in, making noblesse oblige the new standard. Queen Victoria, a life full of controversy and high-key drama, passed away at 81. At the time, she was the second longest reigning monarch in British history. In her final years, she was physically frail and emotionally drained after losing her 3 closest companions, one by one. Despite being queen, she was incredibly lonely. You might wonder, after all those intense relationships, who did she love the most? She gave us the answer herself. In her will, she requested to be buried in the white wedding dress she wore with Albert, covered by his cloak, with their photo in her hand. But she also asked for some of John Brown's belongings to be tucked into her casket too. Talk about keeping it complicated until the very end. Her funeral was massive. Royalty from all over Europe, mostly her own grandkids, showed up. It wasn't just a funeral for a person. It was the end of an era. The Victorian era was a total paradox. Progress versus tradition, wealth versus poverty. Just like Victoria herself, who went from a puppet princess to the grandmother of Europe. Her son, Edward VII, took over, starting the Edwardian era, a short, chaotic transition before the 20th century hit, with wars, revolutions, and modern anxiety. And honestly, none of it would have happened without Queen Victoria. That's it for today's video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and smash that like button.